Tonight we are looking at the latest NHL Trade Rumours, which focuses on a quick update on Jack Eichel. Could the Wild end up trading Kirill Kaprizov instead of giving this big money contract? We've also got some trade talk around the Penguins and the Oilers, several signings to discuss, and Hall of Famer Tony Esposito has passed away. We'll discuss all that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about today, including some signings and some trade talk. And first off, we can get some sad news. Just a little while ago, earlier tonight, we found out that Hockey Hall of Famer Tony Esposito has sadly passed away. Now, Tony Esposito, certainly a great name, well known across hockey. He's won several awards, including the Calder Trophy in his time. He was a great goaltender for many years, and still to this day holds the post-expansion, so like after the original six, once they first started expanding, he holds the record for consecutive games started without being pulled, which actually sits at 271. That is a hockey record I'd be willing to bet may never be broken. I mean, that's crazy when you think about it. In today's NHL, look at the top NHL goaltenders. They rarely get through one season without at least having one bad game where they end up getting pulled. You got to also think about the fact that now teams carry multiple goaltenders that are higher quality, and you also have situations where coaching is done very differently, different strategies and all that too. So the game certainly has changed since Tony played, but certainly, like I said, a well-known character around the game, done a lot. It was a huge part of the NHL for a long time. So I just wanted to acknowledge his passing and certainly offer our condolences to his friends and family and any fans out there. I know it was a role model for many people that were, growing up watching hockey in that era. So certainly want to extend everything to everybody affected by that. Now, as I mentioned, we also have several signings today. We also got a big one, including Jacob Vrana and Detroit coming to terms ahead of arbitration, which was certainly a little bit of a surprise. We had reported just in the past day or two that it was revealed by Elliot Friedman that there was quite a gap between the two sides and what they were looking for. The Wings were around 365 is what their arbitration amount that they were looking for, and that Vrana was like around 575. So it was over $2 million apart, but they've come to terms. Detroit's really come up on their offer. They get a 3-year deal done on Vrana at a 5.25 average annual value. So for a guy who's looking like should be a consistent 25 goal guy, and that they acquired from Washington for Anthony Mantha, I think that's a pretty fair contract. I must say, I like that deal. He compromised a little bit. Detroit compromised a lot, but 365, I think we all knew wasn't going to get it done. And if they would have went into arbitration with that as their number and actually had a hearing, there's no way that the arbitrator would have ruled on the favor of the Red Wings. They would have ruled a lot closer to what Vrana was asking for, maybe a little less, probably somewhere comparable to what they actually settled on. So that's a great contract, and Yzerman gets another great deal done for the Red Wings. So certainly some terrific work done by all on that front. We also had word that the Vancouver Canucks re-signed former first-round pick, young defenseman Olli Juolevi. He gets a 1-year deal, actually at a league minimum salary. So that's a pretty good signing by Jim Benning. Didn't overcommit. We finally saw some good progress and development from Juolevi last year. So it's not really a situation where they should be jumping on a longer-term deal. I think he needs to continue to earn a spot, continue to prove himself, and to do so at a fairly cheap salary. So that to me is a good signing by Vancouver. We also saw the Flames come to terms with pending RFA defenseman Oliver Kylington, who gets a 1-year contract, but this one's actually a 2-way deal. I'm a little surprised. This guy can play, in my opinion. Calgary seems to be holding him back. I was surprised he didn't go in the expansion draft. To be honest, I think he's a player that could be given more opportunity elsewhere for some reason. Just not in Daryl Sutter's good books. And even before that, it wasn't just Sutter. Even before Sutter was coaching, he wasn't getting a ton of opportunity either. So we'll see, but he gets a 1-year, 2-way contract at league minimum, so nothing too major going on there. And then the LA Kings signed first-round draft pick Brandt Clarke to his entry-level contract. So that's a good signing for them. Great for Clarke to get his name to paper and officially become a member of the Kings organization after being drafted fairly high here in the first round in the 2021 NHL draft. I would suspect, given the limited amount of action that Clarke has seen last year, I mean, he didn't get to go over and play a bit in Europe, but I would think he'll likely do a year of junior, have a chance to play for Canada at the World Juniors where he can have a huge role and be a big piece there before making the jump. I mean, I can't imagine he'd go straight to the NHL. And with the the rules and regulations in place for Canadian hockey junior age players to not go directly to the AHL, then I know that that's likely what's going to end up with him. So Clarke likely does another year junior, but still a terrific pick up there and great contract signing for the LA Kings. Now, another puzzling move on behalf of the Seattle Kraken, and again, it's not what they did do, it's what they didn't do. They had a selection from the expansion draft, John Quenneville, who was their selection here from Chicago, didn't get signed. So he ends up going to get a contract in Europe. He's going to play in the Swiss League. So that's 2 players now that the Kraken selected in the expansion draft that they didn't sign, and they lost for nothing within no time. I mean, we knew that some of their expansion draft selections were questionable, and I do wonder, we're looking at some of the rosters and what they picked, especially on a few teams like Columbus, Chicago, even a few others. Did they just not want anything? So they're like, well, we'll take an RFA and we just won't sign them or whatever. It just seems bizarre to me. There had to be something on that roster that was a tradable asset that even if they get a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick, isn't that better than nothing? I mean, I realize a smaller percentage of those picks turn to be NHL players, but given to be a brand new franchise, you just never know. If I'm not GM, if I'm Ron Francis, I'd want to have as many picks as possible, regardless of what round they're in. Yeah, later picks, higher, unlikelihood, I guess you could say, that they won't make it, but still, whatever, it's a chance, rather than pick a player, not sign them, and there's no chance of anything. So bizarre moves here, but that's the second time that's happened. And the Seattle Kraken expansion year here is still confusing to me. They still have a lot of moves left to make between deciding who stays, who goes, and seeing if they can find a few more pieces here to round out their roster. So at some point, right, it's got to get busy with Seattle, you think? So we'll wait and see more news there on Ron Francis and the Kraken. Now, before we jump into the trade talk here today, I do need to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers where you can get 20% off and free shipping into all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken the level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional video. I greatly appreciate it. I wanted to go into a few things here on the trade or free agent front of the rumor mill here. First of all, I want to talk just quickly on Jack Eichel, and then I'll have a quick word here about the Sabres medical team. Now, when it comes to Jack Eichel, there's really not a lot of new information, but I just want to update everybody in case you haven't seen it on the situation that I've talked about a couple days ago with Steve Valiquette putting on Twitter that he felt his spidey senses were tingling and he thought an Eichel trade was getting close, or at least that's what he was leading us to believe. Speaking a little bit, cryptically, not, just explicitly coming out and saying if he knows something, but like I said, he'd be a connected guy. I know there's different opinions out there on all these different members of the media and what they know and don't know and all that. But regardless, it was an interesting thing, kind of got everybody riled up. Now, since then, he's had a couple of additional Twitter posts that I'll show you here. One was, I think, almost 2 days later on the 8th. That basically says that his still tingling is all he put as he goes as he's middle of traveling here. So still at that point, basically letting us know that he still thinks it's going to happen. And then today, he has another one where he is asked blatantly questioned by one of his followers if his spidey senses were still tingling on the Jack Eichel trade. And this was what his response was here. A wise man once told me, when a tingle becomes a jingle, it's time to double down and mingle. Now, little rhyme on words there, nothing too major. Maybe Valakat doesn't know anything. I don't really know. Maybe he's just kind of getting everybody going because he'd like to see an Eichel trade. Maybe he just thinks it's something that should happen or that they should do or whatever. But it's just interesting how he keeps kind of speaking, like I said, somewhat cryptically without coming out and explicitly saying, like, hey, I know something is being worked on. It's going to, we don't know. But at this point, the only team being talked about, at least publicly, by very many members of the media is the Rangers. So we'll see what happens. Otherwise, it's status quo on the Eichel situation. But another piece that I want to add to this is actually not something that happened directly with the situation, but it kind of goes along with it. Now, we all know Robin Lehner, goaltender for the Vegas Golden Knights, is not afraid to speak his mind. And he's been very outspoken about his battles with mental health, his battles with different substance abuse and all that. And to me, I am a huge Robin Lehner fan. I've always been a Lehner fan, first as a player, but then I really became a fan of the person just because of the way that he's not afraid to speak his mind and he's not afraid to talk about his struggles. To me, I think he is a terrific role model for a lot of people to really follow, and especially if you have the similar type of struggles that he's been through or is still dealing with. Because, just because it's in good shape today doesn't mean it's not a struggle or that he has, not have to work on things. But he went on a recent podcast here, the Cam and Strick podcast. Now, if you're not familiar with that, it's a podcast hosted by Andy Strickland, who's a writer for the St. Louis Blues, and Cam Jansen, former NHL player. So the Cam and Strick podcast, and they just interviewed him. I haven't had a chance to listen to all of it yet. It's on my to-do list for this evening, but I did listen to a few quick clips and excerpts. And one of the things that Leonard talked about, he talked about a variety of things in this interview. They really covered a lot when they covered everything when it comes to his trade, how he ended up in Vegas. He talked about what happened when he left the Islanders, and he also talked about his time in Buffalo. And he mentioned, kind of blasted, if you will, the Sabres medical personnel, saying that at one point he had a high ankle sprain and they had him riding a bike within a week when he should have been out 6 to 8 weeks. Like, he really didn't have a lot of good things to say about how things are done and how they look after players there in Buffalo. Like, he had a lot of condemning things to say about that aspect of the business, but it's not something you normally really hear a lot about. Most players aren't going to talk about it publicly, and it's just a different side of information here. And considering everything going on with Eichel and the neck and the surgery he wants and all that, it just kind of sheds some more light. Like, so we've already seen interviews with the surgeons that want to do the surgery on him, looking at the research around this. And yes, like the real thing that keeps coming back to is that an NHL player has not had this particular procedure done this way. But there's been other athletes, lots of other athletes actually, and lots of other people, and it just really questions things about how things are being done in Buffalo, and it kind of might shed some light on why he's as frustrated as he is and how he doesn't feel that they're looking after his health. Because listening to Leonard talk, and I think Robin Lehner can be a very trusted source of a guy who actually physically played there. It just really raises a lot of question marks. So, maybe there's a lot more to it, and maybe, the Sabres are not doing themselves any favors here with how they're handling their players, which could be a huge part to getting this thing built and turned around. Like, they need to change things. If this is, the truth on how they're handling players, and it came straight from Robin Lehner's mouth, so why wouldn't it be? It doesn't provide a good look, and it just really makes things question you on why they're handling Eichel the way they are. And it just maybe, like I said before, Eichel just hasn't hit at a high enough level to really get, that media attention. But we'll see. But just thought that was quite interesting. Listen to what Robin Lehner had to say on his time in Buffalo, amongst other things. Like I said, I need to listen to the rest of the interview. Just wanted to get a few clips because I've seen that making its way around, getting some attention. And it looks like it's a great interview that I can't wait to listen to the remainder of for. And so if you're into listening to a lot of different hockey podcasts, that is a good one, along with, I know I have many that I follow, but that's one of the ones I like as well. Now, on to some other news here. There is word that the Edmonton Oilers are looking to add another defenseman, likely somebody who can play a third pair role. There's been some talk it could be in the trade market, but it could also be done through free agency. They don't have a lot of money to spend. Now, if they do it through trade, they'd have to move out something else. So if a team's willing to take a contract and to take a defenseman back, I know I've seen some suggesting that they might be looking at like a guy like Josh Manson in Anaheim. And I don't know if that's going to be possible. I can understand why there might be interest there, but based on what they have, I think he's not really a third pair defenseman. So I'm kind of dismissive on those reports. What was more likely is they bring back a guy like Slater Cuckoo, who actually played relatively well for them last year, but ended up missing a big chunk of time after suffering a fairly serious injury. Or they could also possibly sign a guy like Jordy Ben. Jordy Ben is from Western Canada, played, finished the season in Winnipeg last year. Really good buddies with Tyson Barrie as well. So put all that together, and he might have a chance to go there. But Cuckoo's already got like that. I would hope that inside connection after playing there last year, and they should be impressed with him because they really only need a third pair guy on a cheaper contract in the 1 to 1 point something mil range, like nothing overly much. So to me, that's more likely what they end up doing rather than pulling off a big trade for a defenseman. I just don't see that happening. But when it comes to the Penguins, now there's been a lot of talk about the goaltending and that a goaltending trade, an upgrade of some sort was going to happen. Lots of talk about Fleury, especially after he was getting moved out of Vegas, and then wondering about would he report to Chicago. Like there was that few days of uncertainty what he was going to do. That really ramped up the conversations about, well, maybe the Penguins should try again to get him to come back. And at the end of the day here, that hasn't happened, and it's not likely going to happen. He's going to play in Chicago. But based on comments from Ron Hextall, it sounds like they're not moving Tristan Jarry and that he is going to be their guy going into the season. They've already replaced the goaltending coach. They've kind of given him some words of encouragement, I guess you could say, trying to change things up to help him with the mental side of the game, and are really working with Jerry to help him bounce back. So to me, as much as there's been a ton of talk about the Penguins goaltending situation, listening to Ron Hextall and what other moves that they've done here, I think that's off the table. Not to say the Penguins are completely done with their roster before the season starts. I'm not 100% convinced that's going to happen. But when it comes to Jerry, at this point, all the goaltending options that I think they could have considered are not really there now, and it's just not likely going to happen. So they're likely going to have to go through another season, or at least part of a season, with what they have and see how things turn out. And the other big player to talk about again is Kirill Kaprizov. Again, we talked about, I posted this morning, as of last night, there was news about a $10 million one-year deal in the KHL. There's been more news surfacing on that front. There are some Russian media outlets kind of saying that he's bluffing. I see different other outlets saying that it's not going to happen, at least not at that price tag. Could he play in the KHL? Sure he could. They'd gladly take him, but there's no way, at least you would think. I mean, I know we talked about this offer, and it seemed legit, but, at the same time, what is being bluffed here, we just don't know. But like I said, lots of people are saying that the Wild really should call his bluff and say, okay, we can't do $10 million. Why don't you play there next year, and then just kind of see how things change on that front. But I mean, like I said, the Wild really only won it 7 or 8 years. They waited a long time for him to come over, had a great year. They know his price is going to continue to go up. Now it seems like Guerin's willing to do 5 or 6 years, but it still looks like he wants shorter than that. He can be UFA, I believe, in 3, so they don't want to do a 3-year deal. They want to walk him right to free agency. They are concerned about what his thoughts are on staying with the organization long term, clearly. So that's very problematic. And there's I saw reports from even like Michael Russo, who covers the Wild, saying that at this point, I mean, no guarantees, but you have to wonder if this contract impasse drags on much longer, and if there's just looking like Kaprizov is not going to budge, could they trade him? I mean, at this rate, I'm not sure. I bet you there's 30 or 31 other teams that would love to have him, but are they going to be concerned about the contract too? And if they can't get a contract done, they'd have to let him speak to other teams. Would be the only way to do it. I just don't know. It's a troubling situation because I feel bad because the Wild they waited so long for this guy to come. He has a fantastic year. It was a huge part of the reason why they get things turned around. Wins the Calder Trophy, Rookie of the Year, and now look at where we're at. It's just an unfortunate set of circumstances here that the Wild are facing, and the next they get the same thing going on with Kevin Fiala. Not quite the same, but similar enough that he's looking for way more money than they want to pay him. And these two young players that are having such a positive impact are really getting a lot of negative media attention. And, that nickname of Dollar Bill Kirill might be fitting in more ways than one at this point. He's a terrific player, but he's played one season. I just don't know what you expect. So I understand the Wild side of it. So I kind of see where he's at too, but he's got to bring his demands down. They need to kind of try to meet in the middle here, maybe on a 5-year pact or something. But it just seems like the odds of it happening are just getting worse by the day. But like I said, the good news is, I guess, is that Russian media outlets are calling him out on his bluff. And I've seen other reports, even other people here saying, you know what, there's just no way. I mean, KHL does have a salary cap too. They just can't do that. So they're likely bluffing to try to get the Wild to succumb to the pressure here and get something done. And we'll see what happens. But it's an unfortunate circumstance here that things are dragging on and getting to the way they are. But you have to wonder at some point, Billy Guerin's just going to be like, okay, listen, we love you as a player, but we're not doing this. So we're going to trade you and move on. But it's not, you can't just win those deals that easy. Especially when teams know that you lose your leverage. So you can't do it because teams will try to take advantage and they won't budge. It'll be the same sort of thing that Buffalo's dealing with for Eichel. When teams know that the player wants to move, then they're not going to give you the price tag you normally would get, and it just kind of screws everything up. You lose your leverage, and then you end up moving the guy for pennies on the dollar, and it sucks for everyone involved. So I'm sure the Wild don't really want to go down that road, and I'll be surprised if they do here. So we'll see how negotiations continue to go, but hopefully we get some more positive news, and they can somehow find a way to meet in the middle and get this guy back on the ice, creating magic for the Wild like he did last year. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We will keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.